Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. Again, I am here this morning on my own, unfortunately, to cover Manchester United, my beloved club, who have disappointed me once again. And we have just come off the back of losing 1-0 to Everton at home, and they have 10 men for a good 85 minutes if you include stoppage time in that game. And I want to explain to you why this result kind of encapsulates everything wrong with Manchester United at the moment, and why this is one of the most embarrassing results that I've seen in a long time at this club. And I think you can point your fingers at Grimsby and the Spurs game, but I really want to stress that this is a real bad one, I think. To be honest, when I was watching it last night, I've rewatched it again this morning. We're at the crack of dawn recording this, unfortunately, but yeah, this is a real bad one for me, and I just want to say right off the top, thank you very much for supporting the channel over the last couple of months. The support has been amazing, and the subscriber count has just only grown and grown and grown. And if we get to maybe like 50k before 2026, it'll make doing stuff like this a lot easier. So no, thank you very much for the appreciation of the the comments, the audience. You've been absolutely fantastic over the last couple of months. But we are now going to move on into Manchester United versus Everton, which obviously was a 1-0 win by Everton, who I thought were absolutely outstanding on the day. And I've got to give massive credit to David Moyes and the Everton team, because the way they played throughout the game was absolutely exceptional. And there's no sort of stain on what they did. They were top notch. But Manchester United have now lost a Premier League game at Old Trafford after seeing the opposition pick up a red card for the first time ever, winning 36 and drawing the other 10. Now, that, more importantly, is why I think that this is one of the worst games that I've watched as a Manchester United fan. And at least, like, in 10 years, I cannot explain to you how bad this was. So I'm going to show you what was happening and why it felt like such a chore for Manchester United to score goals against this Everton team, or just score a goal. So on the board, we've got the 3-4-3 that Ruben Amorim has obviously picked for his entire tenure at Manchester United. Now, what happened was when Everton went down to 10 men, as obviously I've got to adjust again on the touchline here, they went to a 4-4-1. Now, I want to explain that people, when you go down to 10 men, the whole idea of going down to 10 men when you're against them is to work the opposition and make the most of that one-man advantage. What does that mean? It means ball speed, it means stretching, it means continuing like this, back and forth, a lot of long-distance sprints like this, bringing it back over, and you work the opposition block. Now, Manchester United never once abandoned three centre-backs. Now, I'm not saying that Ruben Amorim should abandon his formation. I've seen a lot of people talking for and against maybe if he should have done this. I think he personally should have, especially in the last 20 minutes. But if you just look on the board as to how Everton have set up, they have set up in a 4-4-1, right? Manchester United, if Bruno is playing here, and that often meant that Casemiro and later on Mainu was pushed into the final third, they have got a 4v1 against one single striker. Now, this changed a little bit later on when Luke Shaw was pushing around the outside, but De Ligt, especially when Manchester United were really starting to push high, and this is instruction, by the way, this is a complete instruction, so I'm not having an entire go at the players for this one, but if the possession is worked all the way up here, very rarely was Matthias de Ligt on the edge of the box. Now, that meant that Bruno Fernandes was almost playing the central centre-back role for Manchester United. He was playing the quarterback role, which is just in front of de Ligt. But that didn't matter because Barry was there, and we were 3v1 all the time against Barry, and we never looked to make the most of that one-man advantage. So that is where the problems started for Manchester United. But even though we couldn't maybe factor in that we had a one-man advantage and we couldn't work it to the spare man, Manchester United still had territory and still had chances in the game. But I want to explain to you now is something that we've said on the channel for a long time now. Manchester United, when they have more of the ball than the opposition, struggle way more in games. Manchester United have only won one game in all competitions when they have had 50% or more possession. And that was against Burnley at Old Trafford, who are looking like they're going to be one of the favourites to go down. And they won it in the last minute with a penalty, even though we should have been well and clear. But this is not good enough, because what it means is, by design, the 3-4-3 is looking for wide overload. So if we just tuck in this midfield four here and we show how Everton were working. So if we're working like this, Manchester United's entire plan and their plan of the 3-4-3 in general, when they have a lot of the ball, was to work these wide triangles with three players over here. That often meant that sometimes it was Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, Dorgu, later Dalot. But your wing backs were constantly your width holders. When you have the majority of the possession and your full backs are taking your positions of the wingers and they are playing 1v1 against other full backs, they are not going to consistently get to the line and beat the opposition to the line to create chances. Now, what this meant was often we've seen a lot of back passes. Now, Ruben Amorim caught a lot of slack for the Diogo Dalot for Patrick Dorgu sub. Now, I don't think that he was, he wasn't wrong to do it in my opinion, because I think the options off the bench were so slim. But why did he do it? He did it because he wanted this inside in-swinger to the back post. Now, that justification, which I wholeheartedly believe that's why he did it, he also swapped the fullbacks to get the fullbacks on the in-swingers when they swapped to the fullbacks in like the last 10 minutes. But we saw it on Ahmad and Mbumo's side. They were loving, or this was the only chance-creating mechanism that was made in the 3-4-3, and something that the entire 3-4-3 under Ruben Amorim, when we've had a lot of the ball, is relied on, which is these in-swinging crosses when Mbumo likes to sort of run in behind, Ahmad comes inside with the ball, the right centre-back overloads, the flank, bam, bam, bam. What's the problem with that against Everton is they've got 6'6" Jake O'Brien, two of the best centre-halves in the air, full stop in the Premier League, in Michael Keane and Tarkowski. And you look at the game plan from 10 men, and you look at when they went down to 10 men, all the way up, despite changes in the personnel, despite having a half-time break, the only chance-creating mechanism that Manchester United were looking to use was an in-swinging ball to three of the tallest defenders in the Premier League. And that is wholeheartedly not good enough. And I know a lot of people are going to, say, well, what do you want him to do? For starters, Bruno Fernandes should not be picking the ball off your centre-halves in a game where you are chasing the game at home. Bruno Fernandes should be as close to goal as possible. Mainu come on in the second half, and I actually thought it was a good change. I would have made it very, very soon into the game. Mainu was playing between the lines, and Bruno was playing in front of the centre-halves. Now, for me, I don't understand the rationale behind his midfield construction and what he is doing with the midfield construction. I've been very, very critical of his selection of Bruno Fernandes playing as the deepest midfielder. Roberto Martinez was actually on M&F before the game and was explaining that he can play 6 with the ball, and when the ball's worked up, he can play 8, and then when the ball's in the final third, he can play 10. In this game against Everton, you do not need an extra player stood in front of the centre-halves. If the centre-halves have got enough width about them and they've got enough ball speed, which again, I come back to the personnel, they did not, then this player does not need to be in front of Barry. He needs to be sat behind waiting for that ball between the lines. And that never happened. So many times in the game, Bruno was splitting sometimes the centre-halves and dropping in and picking the ball off the centre-halves. It's not good enough. And you can say that's maybe tactical. I can say it's also personnel. And I've seen a lot of intensity comments after the game. We weren't at it, spirit weren't there. Manchester United had 15 days rest coming into this one. We had the longest break out of any single Premier League team playing this weekend. We don't have Europe. Most of the players, a lot of the players didn't go to international break. We had a very, very long training camp to build up for this game. It's the first time we played at home in 4 weeks. It couldn't have been any more streamlined for Manchester United. And they've shown up to that game lacking intensity. And whether or not you put that down to a mental, physical, or even managerial aspect, showing up to Old Trafford when you are somewhat building form in terms of 5 games unbeaten and you've come off 2 away games where you should have got more, the pace from the start was not there. I think Amorim said it himself. In the first 5-10 minutes, the pace was not in the game. Even when Everton had 11 men, Manchester United were the second best team on the pitch. And it was funny actually, because when Everton were pushing up against Manchester United with 11 men and they were going full throttle press like they were, sometimes Xerxes was dropping in and we were actually attacking space quite nice, and when Everton were coming out. But then it's the same pattern that we've seen all season long, which is they score, a team sits back, and Manchester United have no answer on the ball to consistently break low blocks because their wing backs are held the width by full backs and all their players are inside and the only chance creating mechanism is an in-swinger. And in the box, when you're looking at the in-swinger, Xerxes actually had a brilliant header that was saved by Pickford, But Mainu, Mount, Xerxes, Mbeumo, none of them are real aerial threats. We crossed the ball more in this game than I'd seen us cross it all season. And we had 6'6" Benjamin Sesko, who's an absolute pillar in the air. And we didn't cross it to him, but we crossed it in this game. And that's why I'm so frustrated with this game in particular, because it felt like we were lost for ideas. And this is a real bad one, especially going into the sort of next 10 games that we've got in the Premier League where they look very, very favourable. We go away to Selhurst Park at the weekend, and that is a game where we know how little of the ball Crystal Palace like to have, how much they demand of the opposition team to work their block, and it's already looking very scarily similar to the pattern of this game and the pattern of so many games that Manchester United have played this season. So now I've got 3 examples on your screen to talk about what I meant that Manchester United are lost when they have the ball, especially in a game like this. So I've got the first example here, which shows in the 56th minute, again, 1-0 down, Manchester United are playing with Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, Lenny Yoro, Matthias de Ligt, all behind Everton's furthest forward player. And we can see that Bruno Fernandes is trying to pass the ball into Patrick Dorgu's feet to play 1v1 against Mykolenko with Luke Shaw behind him. Now, this is the start, or this is one of the many, many problems that Manchester United are facing. As I've mentioned, they have got fullbacks holding the width. But also, if you can imagine that these are 3 players that are rotating around here, and this is Bruno, the lack of bodies, so this is how pretty much it's set up against Everton. And if you just look at the box is severely underloaded with players against a 10-man team. This is a team who you want to commit bodies against. If you've got 3 players out here, you've got 3 players behind Barry, and there's no incision between the lines. If a player's stood here, he's not going to get it. They're all crashing the box. And the only reason why they're crashing the box is because Manchester United want to do one thing, and that is cross the ball in from a wider area. Whether it's Patrick Dorgu hitting the line, whether it's a Dalot back on the in-swinger, whether or not it's played back to Luke Shaw for a deeper cross, none of that really measured up well against this Everton team. And I think it was almost like a cry for help during the game, and the amount of crosses we were playing into the box and the amount of sort of no real patterns to the crosses. They were just Hail Marys into the box. So now I've got another example of the same thing on the other side. In the 65th minute, we can see Amad Diallo is looking to play an in-swinger in on his left foot. Again, Lenny Yoro, Bruno Fernandes, Matthias de Ligt, all deeper than Barry. Now, we can look when the ball is coming in. I actually think this was a header that Mason Mount sort of scruffed up. But again, you look into the box, and Mbeumo, Xerxes, Mount, Shaw, Mainu, who is winning a header against the likes of Jake O'Brien, Tarkowski, Michael Keane? The fact that this was the pathway of the game, this was the storyline of the game, the way we set up to beat a 10-man team, it's not good enough. It's really not good enough. We're subbing on these technical, small space players to lump it into the box and hope for the best. That's not good. That's really not good. Final example, 78-58. We can see that these are 10-minute increments in the game where the game is getting closer and closer and closer to the end of the game, and nothing is changing in terms of the amount we're pushing forward. Luke Shaw this time on the ball. How many players behind Tieno Barry? 4. Can see Bruno Fernandes deeper, Yoro deeper, de Ligt deeper. Luke Shaw's whipping it in. We look at the back post. Who's there? Mbeumo, Mainu, Amad, Xerxes, Mount. Again, not good enough players to hit the ball into. And for me, it felt like a really, really naive strategy to try this over and over and over again with no real in-game coaching or idea as to what we're going to do. Like I mentioned before, even if that idea was to stick de Ligt up here and then drop Yoro and Shaw into 2 centre-backs, I would not have cared. I would not have cared, because that's an extra player in the box who can win a header. There was none of that. There was none of it. And it felt like a game where United were lost for ideas, didn't know what to do against a low block with 10 men. Bruno Fernandes, way too deep all the time. In the screenshots, pretty much every screenshot I've just shown you, he's not between the lines looming around the penalty area for knockdowns. We know how good he is when the ball comes across to him in these spaces. He's not there. He's here. That is not where you want probably your best goal scorer and creator in the team, outside of Mbeumo, to be. You can't have him there. It's just not good enough. And I think if the centre-halves are pushing up like this, as I was asking for them to be, that position becomes absolutely irrelevant for him to be there. But because De Ligt's so deep like this, it forces Bruno to just sit in front, and Barry just goes, all right, I'll just stand next to you. And that's the one-man advantage that Man United played for 80 minutes in the game, completely cancelled out. I want to run through the goal that Manchester United conceded against Everton and why it is absolutely inexcusable. So on the 28th minute, Everton have had a throw-in, they've thrown it in, and the ball is worked back to Jordan Pickford in his own half. Now, for some reason, Brian Mbeumo and Bruno Fernandes have vacated their central positions to jump onto Jordan Pickford. Jordan Pickford is only ever going to launch this ball. We've all watched Everton. This ball is going to go nowhere else apart from Tarkowski's and Michael Keane's head when they are left high from a throw-in. The ball is launched against Tarkowski and Yoro, and we can see that when the ball is coming down for the aerial duel, how many United players are ahead of the ball and how much space there is ahead of the ball for the seconds. This is not structural. This is complete laziness, compactness. This is really bad. Look at Mbeumo's position, Ahmad's position, Xerxes' position, everyone is out of position. The ball is knocked down into the space. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall picks it up in about 5 metres of the pitch. Again, 4 Manchester United players ahead of the ball against a 10-men Everton at Old Trafford at 0-0, okay? The ball is then worked outside to Jack Grealish. It goes back to Mykolenko. Mykolenko fires it into James Garner. Garner splits the line to Dewsbury-Hall. Dewsbury-Hall turns in a similar amount of spaces to where he initially picked the ball up in and fires it in for Everton 1-0. That goal is one of the worst Manchester United goals I've seen conceded in a long time. Not just for the simple fact that the compactness weren't there, the running's not there, the second ball weren't there, but it's against 10 men, and Everton fashioned more space against 11 men with 10 than Manchester United managed to do in pretty much the entire game at home against 10 men. So, yeah, it's a real bad one, this, and I think more importantly, it's very key how much this changes the narrative. I was speaking to a producer who's also a United fan, and he was saying that you look at the games and you go, well, we've lost now this one, which means we're now 3 games without a loss. But if we'd have won it or we'd have drawn it, it would have been 6 unbeaten. And the narrative has changed so massively off the back of this result. And not just because of the performance and the result, but the way we've lost the game is absolutely shocking. Like I said, first ever time Manchester United have been beat at Old Trafford with 10 men. And I think it's a really, really bad result. I think it's one of the most embarrassing results we've had in the last 10 years probably, in terms of the way we've gone about it. And he's got some serious questions. He's got to answer some serious questions, and them questions are all about how his team creates chances consistently with the possession. It's not good enough what's going on right now. At home, Manchester United cannot win games when they have to play on the front foot. We even noticed in the first half, before Everton got the red card, how much Lemons was wanting to play direct through the lines to break the lines and then attack space. I'm okay with playing that way, but there's certain games, and there's going to be certain games where the likes of Everton, West Ham, Sunderland, you'll go to places like that and you have to play on the front foot. And Manchester United currently at Old Trafford against lesser teams cannot play on the front foot. And there's only so many teams you can play in the break against. But yeah, it really does feel like one step forward, two steps back under Ruben Amorim at Manchester United this season. They are now 10th mid-table. Yeah, it's a real bad one, and I think this is one that's going to drag on for a long, long time, this result and this performance in particular. But got Selhurst Park at weekend. It's another challenge in terms of getting on the ball and trying to make things happen. But I can't stress how disappointed I am with this result. I honestly, my brain is on fire when I was watching this yesterday. Not just because of the physical levels, for something I've praised a lot all season long, weren't there after 15 days rest somehow. I don't understand how. Ruben Amorim reluctant to change. De Ligt didn't even go forward at pretty much any point in the game until I think like 94th minute, when Maguire's had so much joy playing up front. People take the mick out of it, but it worked. You didn't even do that. There was just next to no tweaks. I sympathise with him because of the lack of attacking options on the bench, but yeah, it was a real bad one. And yeah, really does feel like 2 steps back, this one. So thank you very much for watching as always. And if you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment and follow the Overlap Breakdown channel. We'll be back next week for some more tactical analysis. Thank you.